Grant tapped his knife against his champagne glass while the server was still setting down my sea base. "One more thing," he said. "Mara and I have decided the Harlow Street rental income will go to Tessa for the next year, so she can open the second studio." My hand stopped on my napkin. Tessa stared at him, then at me. "Are you serious?" "Every payment," Grant said. "I already told Leonard to redirect them." She came around the table and hugged him first. "Thank you for being generous with Mara's property," she said, laughing through sudden tears. "Both of you. God, I can breathe again." My phone vibrated beside my plate. Leonard Pike, the Harlow building manager, had replied to an email with the subject line, "The rental revision." I opened the attachment while Tessa bent to embrace me. The first sentence read, "Per Grant Mercer's request, I have revised his instructions to reflect the fact that he has no authority over this property or its income." I looked across the candles at the man I was supposed to marry in 11 weeks and wondered how long he had been planning to make it impossible for me to say no. Tessa's arms loosened. "Mara?" "You're squeezing the breath out of her," Colleen said fondly. Grant's mother sat at the head of the table in a silver blouse she'd bought specifically because it photographed well in low light. She lifted her glass. "That's what family is for, though, to make each other breathe easier." Everyone raised their champagne, everyone except me. My mother, Elaine, was watching my face. She knew the Harlow numbers because she had sat with me at my kitchen table when the boiler cracked, and the insurance company called corrosion deferred maintenance. She knew that 6 apartments paying rent did not mean 6 envelopes of spending money. Grant smiled at me over the rim of his glass. It was a reassuring smile, the one he used when a contractor was late or the restaurant had lost our reservation. Usually it meant, "I've handled it." This time, apparently, it meant, "Don't ruin this." I lowered my phone. "How much do you think you're getting, Tessa?" The glasses paused in the air. Tessa looked at Grant. Her happiness had made her cheeks blotchy. "Grant said 48,000 for the year, 4 a month, but I'm not trying to be greedy. I'll pay you back once the new location is stable." "You told me it wasn't a loan," Grant said, "because you said Mara didn't want it to feel like one." I looked at him. "I said that?" His smile stayed in place, though one corner tightened. "We discussed helping her. We discussed whether her landlord might give her 60 more days to decide on the space. That was the beginning of the conversation. It was also the end." Colleen set down her glass with a tiny click. Maybe this is one of those discussions that loses warmth when you reduce it to exact sentences. My father coughed into his fist. Across from him, Grant's uncle studied the butter dish as though it contained instructions for surviving the evening. Grant leaned toward me. "Can we take 5 minutes outside?" "No," I said. "I'd like to hear what you told Leonard." "Just an administrative request. He probably misunderstood." I turned the phone toward him. He revised it. Grant glanced at the screen. For the first time that night, the color shifted in his face. I opened Leonard's attachment. Grant had made it look official. The document carried Harlow Street's address, Leonard's name, my property company's bank information, and a start date of the 1st of the following month. Grant had titled himself Owner Representative, which was a phrase he had apparently invented between appetizers. Leonard's version had thick red lines through almost every paragraph. Rent would continue to enter the existing operating account. Owner distributions would continue to go only to the account I had designated. No change could be made without my written authorization. A comment bubble sat beside Grant's title. "Please note that Mr. Mercer is neither an owner nor an authorized representative." Tessa had returned to her chair. She folded her napkin, unfolded it, then folded it again. Grant kept his voice low. "This isn't the place. You chose the place. I chose to tell our families something good. You told our families you gave away my income. Our income, once we're married. We aren't married." The words landed harder than I intended. Grant's gaze moved briefly to the diamond on my hand. Colleen came to his rescue. "Nobody is questioning what belongs to whom legally. This was about spirit. You're 11 weeks from standing up in front of everyone and promising to share a life. My roof does not accept payment in spirit. Come on, Grant said. You make more than enough on that building. The roof estimate is $36,000. It's been an estimate for 2 years because the plumbing stack cost $22,000. Tessa looked between us. I didn't know any of that. Grant rubbed his thumb along the base of his champagne glass. Because Mara always focuses on the worst possible scenario. That building is full. Leonard handles everything. There is money sitting there. My phone dimmed. I tapped it awake, and another comment appeared farther down the page. Grant's original instruction remained visible beneath Leonard's markup. Please make this look like a routine allocation. Do not contact Mara tonight. I'm announcing it at dinner, and she'll be on board once Tessa knows. My skin went cold beneath the restaurant's amber heat. Read this, I said. Grant didn't take the phone. I read it for him, quietly. I didn't need to raise my voice. Our table had gone so still that I could hear ice settling in my father's water glass. Tessa closed her eyes. Mara, Grant said, you're making a private email sound sinister. You told him not to contact me because I wanted to surprise you. You were surprising me with my own decision, with a chance to do something meaningful. My mother pushed her plate away. Grant, if the meaning depended on Mara finding out after Tessa, then the meaning was pressure. Colleen's expression sharpened. She had always liked my mother in the ceremonial way people like a neighbor's tidy yard. Elaine, they don't need us turning this into teams. I agree, my mother said. Grant did that when he picked an audience. For one strange second, I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, because the server had appeared behind Grant holding a little chocolate cake with "Congratulations, Mara Grant" written in white icing, and she was trapped there, reading the room with the terrified concentration of someone approaching a wild animal. My father noticed her too. You can set it here, he said gently. She placed it between the candles and escaped. The sugar flowers were the exact blue of the glass key fob in my purse. Leonard's wife, June, had made 6 of those fobs in the year before she died, each a flattened oval of blue glass with a pale streak through its center. 5 hung inside the locked cabinet in Leonard's office, attached to labeled spare keys. The 6th held my master key. When I bought Harlow, the hallway carpet smelled like wet dog, and the rear stairs leaned enough to make a marble roll. Grant had spent 3 weekends helping me tear out cabinets in Unit 4. He'd slept on my couch with plaster in his hair. He had earned a place in my memories of the building. Somewhere along the way, he had mistaken that for earning the building. Tessa stood. I need the restroom. I'll come with you, Colleen said. I'd rather go alone. Colleen sat back down. Tessa left with her shoulders held unnaturally straight. She passed the cake without looking at it. Grant exhaled. Great. I stared at him. Great? She's humiliated. She thanked you for giving her something that wasn't yours. And you could have corrected it without reading the email to everyone. How? You could have said Leonard needed clarification. We could have talked at home, then come up with a number that worked. A number you'd already promised. Colleen placed both palms on the table. Her nails were painted the same pale pink she had chosen for the wedding invitations, without asking me. Mara. He was trying to help his sister. Was he clumsy? Fine. Grant can be clumsy when his heart gets ahead of his head. Grant gave a short, humorless laugh. Thanks, Mom. But there was no cruelty in it, she continued. The cruelty is letting Tessa discover, in front of people, that the future she was just handed can be snatched away. I didn't hand it to her. No, Colleen said. You just made sure she felt the taking. Grant looked at me as if his mother had finally found the words he needed. That hurt more than the announcement. He had lied to Leonard, assigned himself authority over my property, and arranged witnesses to my compliance. Yet he could still look wounded because I had failed to protect him from the shape of what he'd done. My father reached for the bottle of sparkling water. This dinner is over. Grant's uncle immediately stood, knocking his knee against the table. My parents began the awkward work of gathering coats, purses, and a gift bag containing 2 engraved champagne flutes no one mentioned. Colleen remained seated. "We paid a deposit for this room," she said. "Then stay and enjoy it," my mother replied. I slipped my phone into my purse. My fingers brushed the blue glass fob. Grant followed me into the restaurant lobby. Behind us, Colleen was asking the waiter to box the cake. "Mara, stop!" I kept walking until we were past the hostess stand and beside the coat check. Rain streaked the front windows. Our reflections floated over the wet street. Me in the green dress Grant loved, him in the navy jacket I had given him for our anniversary. He moved in front of me. I screwed up the approach. The approach? Yes, the approach. I should have talked to you first. You did talk to me. I said Tessa should ask for an extension before signing anything. She can't keep waiting for perfect conditions. So you promised her my rent. I promised that we would help. No, you promised a specific amount from a specific account. Then you ordered my manager to move it. His jaw flexed. Leonard could have called me instead of sending you some theatrical red line. Leonard works for me. I know that. Do you? A couple stepped around us toward the door. The woman's eyes dipped to my ring and then away. Grant lowered his voice. You love that building more than you trust me. That sentence used to sound ridiculous. He flinched. For a moment, we were just 2 people standing under a chandelier, while someone behind a curtain searched for coat number 37. I wanted him to say the one thing that could have reached me. I knew you might say no, and I tried to take that choice away from you. Instead, he said, "Once we're married, we can't keep acting like every dollar has a border around it. Your salary goes into your account." Because we agreed I'd cover groceries, utilities, and the wedding installments. And I cover the condo payment. The condo is in your name. So is Harlow. He looked toward the dining room. Everything comes back to names on paper with you. Names on paper are the reason Leonard didn't send Tessa $4,000. Colleen emerged carrying the cake box by its string handle. Tessa took a car home. Grant pulled out his phone. I'll call her. She doesn't want to speak to either of you right now, Colleen said. Either of you. She placed me inside the offense as smoothly as she buttoned her coat. I'm going home, I said. Grant looked up. We came together. I know. I'll come with you. No, stay with your mother. Colleen's mouth tightened. Please don't make me the wedge here. I didn't send that email. I met her eyes. Did you know about the announcement? She adjusted the cake string around her fingers. A little ridge of white frosting had smeared the cardboard window. I knew Grant wanted to do something kind, she said. That was not an answer, and we all knew it. Outside, the rain had softened to mist. My father was waiting at the curb while my mother stood beneath the awning, holding my coat open for me. I let her slide it onto my shoulders. You can come home with us, she said. I need to go to my place. Do you want company? No. She searched my face, then kissed my cheek. Call when you get in. Grant watched from behind the restaurant glass as I climbed into a cab. He didn't chase me. Part of me was grateful. Another part noticed. At the condo, the entry lamp was on because Grant hated coming home to dark rooms. His shoes were lying neatly beneath the bench, his gray running jacket hanging from the hook he had installed after complaining that mine was crooked. Nothing looked stolen. That was the problem. His life fit so naturally beside mine that I couldn't see where sharing ended and surrender began. I removed my engagement ring and set it in the little ceramic dish by the sink. Then I took the master key from my purse. The blue glass fob caught the kitchen light. A hairline chip marked one edge from the night Grant had dropped it on Harlow's front steps while carrying a new toilet upstairs. I ran my thumb over that chip and remembered him laughing in the rain, his shirt soaked through, telling me that someday we would own something easy. My phone rang. Tessa. I answered. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said, I signed the lease yesterday. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. What lease? The second studio. Grant told me the money was settled. Her voice cracked. then hardened as though she resented it for betraying her. I paid the deposit this morning. How much? $12,000. I closed my hand around the key. Mara, she whispered, what exactly did my brother do? I looked toward the dark window over the sink. My reflection was faint enough to belong to somebody else. He sent Leonard a payment instruction, I said. He listed himself as my representative and told Leonard not to contact me before dinner. Tessa breathed into the phone. What did he tell you? That you offered. Her answer came quickly, as if she'd been holding it behind her teeth. He said you knew I was trying to decide by Friday, and you wanted to surprise me. Mom said it made sense because you don't like people making a fuss when you help them. I almost admired the construction. Grant had used my dislike of attention to explain my complete absence from my own generosity. Did he send you anything in writing? Just texts. He said $4,000 a month for a year. He told me I could show that income to the landlord if they wanted proof I could carry both locations. Did you? No. They accepted the larger deposit instead. Where did the $12,000 come from? 8 from my savings, 4 on a credit card. I pressed my knuckles against my forehead. Tessa said, please don't make that sound. What sound? That quiet breathing thing. Grant does it when I've made a bad decision. I'm trying not to say the first thing in my head, which is that you signed a commercial lease based on money you had never discussed with the person who owned it. Her silence was immediate and hot. I regretted the sentence without believing it was wrong. I thought I had discussed it with your future husband, she said. You discussed it with your brother. Yes, I understand the difference now. The line went quiet again. I could hear a car passing on her end. I'm sorry, I said. That was sharper than it needed to be. No, it was exactly sharp enough. She sniffed. I just wish you'd used it yesterday. Yesterday, I didn't know I was financing a studio. Neither did I. That was the first moment I understood that Grant had not simply spent my money. He had placed Tessa on the other side of me, then told each of us the other had already crossed the distance. Send me the lease, I said. For what? To see what you signed. There may be a cancellation provision or an assignment clause. I'm not promising anything. I know. I mean that, Tessa. I know. I'm listening very carefully now. The lock turned before we hung up. Grant came in carrying the boxed engagement cake. The string had cut a red groove across his fingers. He stopped when he saw my ring in the dish beside the sink. I'll call you tomorrow, I told Tessa. Was that her? Grant asked after I ended the call. She signed the lease. He set the cake on the counter too hard. The lid lifted, then settled. I know. You knew before dinner? She texted me a picture from the landlord's office. And you still announced it. That's why I announced it. She had committed. The clean simplicity of his answer left me staring. Grant took off his jacket and draped it over a chair. Don't look at me like I pushed her into traffic. She has a good business. The first studio is booked out most weekends. This expansion can work. With $4,000 a month from me. With support from us for 1 year? You keep changing the noun and hoping it changes the source. He went to the cabinet, took down a water glass, and filled it from the tap. His movements were careful. Grant became tidier when he was angry, as if disorder would count against him in court. I was going to cover part of it, he said. How much? I hadn't settled on a number. You settled on mine. I knew yours existed. I let that sit between us. He drank half the water and put the glass in the dishwasher instead of the sink. That came out wrong. No, I think it came out clean. Mara, you have over $70,000 in the Harlow Reserve account. 58. So you do know the exact number. Of course I know the exact number. And you have a $36,000 roof quote you've been sitting on. I am not sitting on it. I am building the reserve so one broken drain line doesn't put the roof on a credit card. Meanwhile, Tessa has a location that could double her income. Then a bank can evaluate that opportunity. You know banks don't look at small service businesses that way. Then maybe the landlord shouldn't be asking for 5 years and $12,000 up front. He dragged a hand over his face. This is what you do. You reduce every human need to whether the paperwork is clean. And you turn dirty paperwork into a human need. His hand dropped. The apartment went still except for the refrigerator motor. On the counter, "Congratulations, Mara Grant," showed through the clear cake box lid, the icing squeezed against one side from the drive home. "I have put hundreds of hours into Harlow," he said. There it was. Not an apology. An invoice. I know. I hauled out cabinets. I painted units. I dealt with that plumber who kept calling you sweetheart. I went over there at 2 a.m. when Unit 6 smelled gas. I remember all of it. Do you? Because when it's convenient, I'm your partner. When there's income, suddenly I'm a guest. You never asked to be paid. I shouldn't have to submit a timesheet to the woman I'm marrying. You also shouldn't use the work as a deed. I didn't say I own the building. You called yourself my owner representative. That was a label on a form. It was a label you needed Leonard to believe. Grant leaned against the counter and looked down. For a moment, the anger drained out of him. He looked tired, older than he had at dinner. "I wanted one thing to go right for her," he said. "Just one thing that didn't end with Mom covering the gap. So you volunteered me. I thought you'd get there. After Tessa thanked me in front of both families." He looked up. "Yes, I thought once you saw what it meant to her, you'd get there." It was the closest he had come to telling the truth. I wanted that truth to be enough. 11 weeks earlier, he had sat on our bedroom floor assembling invitation boxes until his fingers blistered. He knew exactly how much milk I wanted in my coffee. He had driven my father to 3 medical appointments and never once mentioned the missed work. People were rarely cruel in every direction. That was what made one particular direction so easy to excuse. "I'm going to review Tessa's lease," I said. "If there's a reasonable way to help her without touching Harlow's operating money, I'll consider it." Relief crossed his face. "Okay. I'll consider a documented loan directly to her, an amount I choose after I see the numbers." His expression closed again. "A loan. Yes. So every month she writes you a check and remembers that you rescued her. No, every month she pays an obligation she agreed to. You know how that'll feel. She put $4,000 on a credit card today. I think she understands obligations." He pushed away from the counter. "You don't want to help. You want to win correctly." "I want to know why your sister's studio became my test of love." He picked up his jacket. "Where are you going?" "My mother has a guest room." "Of course she does." Grant stopped at the door. "Don't do that." "What?" "Make everything my mother's fault because it's easier than admitting you don't know how to merge a life." I looked at the ceramic dish, at the ring inside it. "Leave your Harlow key." His eyes moved to mine. "It's on your key ring," I said. "The plain brass one. Leonard gave it to you for emergencies." "You're serious?" "Yes. I've had that key for 3 years. And tonight you told me I treat you like a guest." He pulled his keys from his pocket. The Harlow key sat between the condo fob and the little bottle opener Tessa had given him. Grant worked it off the ring, breaking a thumbnail in the process, and placed it on the entry table. Then he left. The cake stayed on the counter until morning. Leonard met me at Harlow at 8 with 2 coffees and the expression of a man preparing to testify. He was 62, narrow as a folded ladder, and wore the same brown work boots whether he was fixing a disposal or meeting an insurance adjuster. His office occupied what had once been the building's laundry room. June's blue glass key fobs hung in the cabinet above his desk, each catching the fluorescent light. "I didn't know if you'd eaten," he said, passing me a cup. "I had half a sugar flower at midnight." "That counts as paint, not food." I sat across from him. He had printed Grant's email chain and clipped it behind the revision. "Tell me exactly what happened." Leonard lowered himself into his chair. "He called Thursday morning and said you two were reorganizing finances before the wedding. I told him to have you email me." He didn't mention that. I expect there are several things he didn't mention. Leonard pushed the pages toward me. Yesterday afternoon, he sent the instruction. I replied that I needed owner authorization. He called again, said you were in back-to-back meetings, and the announcement was that night. So you knew about the dinner. Not where. Just that he was telling the family. He said it would help you to see everyone excited before you got buried in logistics. I stared at the pages. Leonard rubbed his jaw. That was when I stopped thinking he was over-eager and started thinking he was using me. A small laugh escaped me. Welcome to the dinner. I'm sorry. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. I also waited almost 2 hours before sending you the revision. I kept thinking he'd call back and tell me you approved it. Why? Because I like him. There was no defensiveness in it. That made it worse and better at once. Leonard had known Grant through leaking ceilings, frozen locks, and the month Unit 3's refrigerator died 3 times. Grant remembered Leonard's birthday. He brought him barbecue when we worked late. I like him too, I said. Leonard nodded, as if that was the problem he had expected me to bring. He showed me the monthly ledger. After the mortgage, insurance, utilities, management fee, routine maintenance, and reserve contribution, Harlow had cleared an average of $1,900 a month that year. Grant's promised $4,000 would have required draining reserves before spring. He knew the rough numbers, I said. He's seen these reports. Seeing income at the top and reading expenses all the way down are different hobbies. My phone buzzed with Tessa's lease. A second message followed. Grant says you're offering a loan. Mom says I shouldn't sign anything that makes family help feel like debt. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I showed Leonard. He read it and handed the phone back. That family can turn a sandwich into a referendum. Despite myself, I laughed. My laugh became something else too quickly. I covered my mouth and looked at the glass fobs in the cabinet until the pressure behind my eyes eased. Leonard pretended to study the ledger. I'm going to pay Grant, I said. For what? The renovation work, fair market rate, as close as we can document it. Leonard frowned. Did he ask? Not directly, that's why I need to do it. He understood before I finished. If Grant's labor had value, I would name it and pay it. I would not let it remain a vague moral lien against anything of mine he wanted to claim. Leonard turned to his computer. I have old contractor invoices. We can separate what he did from what licensed people handled. And change the emergency contact sheet. His hands paused over the keyboard. Take him off, I said. By noon, Leonard had built a rough list. Demolition in Unit 4, painting in 2 and 5, appliance deliveries, minor hardware, after-hours visits. Some entries were impossible to price, including 6 hours Grant spent sitting with an elderly tenant while a restoration crew dried her ceiling. Leonard marked those personal. I left them in. At home, Grant's running shoes were gone. So were his suits, shaving kit, and the framed photograph of us on the Harlow front steps. He had left the invitation boxes stacked against the bedroom wall. Colleen called while I was changing out of my work clothes. I hope you're pleased, she said. I'm not. Grant hasn't slept. Tessa could lose everything she saved. I have a cake in my refrigerator with both your names on it, and I don't know which one of you I'm angrier at. That almost sounded fair. Then she added, but only one of you had the power to prevent all of this. I sat on the edge of the bed. That's exactly what Grant thought. He thought his future wife would help his sister. He thought I'd be too embarrassed to refuse. He knew you might need a push. A push from whom, Colleen? She went silent. Did you help him plan the announcement? I told him that families respond better to generosity when they can witness it. The honesty was so effortless that I felt briefly weightless. You told him to do it in public. I told him not to let you disappear into spreadsheets before you saw Tessa's face. And after I saw her face, I believed you'd make the loving choice. I walked into the kitchen. The blue key fob lay beside my ring. Morning light passed through it, laying a narrow stripe across the counter. I did see her face, I said. That's why I'm not letting your son use it against me. Colleen's voice cooled. Be careful, Mara. You're treating boundaries like they only protect the person who draws them. She ended the call. I stood there with the phone against my ear until the screen went dark. A text from Grant arrived a minute later. Mom says you removed me as Harlow's emergency contact. I typed, You returned the key. His reply came immediately. I returned one key. I read the sentence twice. Then Leonard called. Mara, he said without greeting. Did you authorize anyone to enter the empty ground floor unit? No, I said. I'm on my way. I grabbed the blue fobbed master key from the counter. My ring stayed in the ceramic dish. Harlow was 9 minutes away if I caught the lights and 15 if I didn't. I missed all of them. At each red light, Grant's text glowed from the passenger seat. I returned one key. Leonard was waiting at the front entrance when I pulled up. He didn't ask why I was wearing house slippers. They're in one, he said. I heard something dragging across the floor. Who? He gave me a look. The vacant ground floor unit smelled of fresh primer and old radiators. Colleen stood at the far wall holding one end of a tape measure. Tessa held the other. A folding table had been opened in the center of the room beneath samples of vinyl flooring, cabinet finishes, and a printed diagram of 3 treatment rooms. A cardboard carrier of coffee sat on the windowsill. Colleen lowered the tape. Well, Leonard found you. What are you doing? Tessa's face had the exhausted puffiness of someone who had slept badly. Grant said we could look at this as a temporary option. This is a residential apartment. It's empty, Colleen said. It's being painted for a new tenant, who hasn't signed anything yet. I looked at Tessa. Did Grant tell you that too? She let go of the tape measure. It snapped back into Colleen's hand. He said you weren't listing it until after the plumbing inspection, Tessa said. He thought I could use it for 6 months, just until the new studio built a client base. You cannot run a massage studio out of this unit. I know it would need approval from the city, from my insurer, from me. We were gathering information, Colleen said. No one has installed anything. A folder lay open on the folding table. The top page was an invoice from a licensing consultant for $1,500, marked paid. Beneath it was an order confirmation for portable sinks and wall-mounted shelving. I touched the page. What is this? Tessa came forward. That was for the other space. Most of it can be canceled. Most? I was trying to salvage something. You don't salvage a bad commitment by making another one inside my building. Her head lifted. You think I don't know that? I have no idea what you know. Every time I speak to you, Grant has promised you something else. Colleen stepped between us, not dramatically. She simply moved one polished shoe forward until she occupied the line of sight. Tessa is trying to keep 8 years of work from being damaged by an argument between you and Grant. Her existing studio is still open. The new lease is the damage. Then help her get out of it. Don't move her into my apartment. I am helping her. I called the consultant. I priced the fixtures. I came here to measure. And how did you get in? Neither answered. Leonard stood in the doorway with his arms crossed. The lock showed no damage. Colleen's eyes flicked toward him. Grant gave us a key. I felt something inside me go quiet. Where is it? Tessa reached into her coat pocket and placed a brass key on the folding table. It was newer than the one Grant had returned, its cut edges still bright. He made a copy, I said. He had copies made when contractors were working here last year, Colleen replied. This is not some break-in. It becomes one when he's no longer authorized to enter. Oh, please. Tessa pushed the key toward me. Take it. I picked it up. Then I set my own master key on the windowsill so I could close the folder. The blue glass clicked against the sill beside a wet ring left by someone's coffee. Pack everything, I said. You're leaving. Tessa began collecting samples. Colleen didn't move. If you throw us out now, you are making reconciliation almost impossible. You used a copied key to enter my vacant apartment. To measure walls. After I said no to the money, you never said no to this. I never knew this existed. That seems to be your favorite defense." Leonard uncrossed his arms. "Mrs. Mercer, you need to go." Colleen's face changed. She could dismiss me as emotional, rigid, difficult. Leonard's plain professional voice made her look exactly like what she was, a person standing where she had no permission to stand. She folded the tape measure into her purse. Tessa carried the folder and flooring samples to the hall. As she passed me, she said, "I didn't know he copied the key." "I believe you." She stopped. Colleen said, "Tessa." "I said I believe you," I repeated. Tessa's mouth tightened. "That doesn't make this less humiliating." "No, you keep getting to be right, and somehow I'm the one carrying boxes." She left before I could answer. Colleen followed. At the front door, she turned to Leonard. "We'll be speaking again once Mara has calmed down." Leonard held the door open. "If we do, please use the buzzer." The door shut behind her. I retrieved my master key from the windowsill. A drop of coffee had dried against the blue glass. I rubbed it away with my sleeve. "Call the locksmith," I told Leonard. "Whole building. Exterior doors, office, vacant units, maintenance rooms. If Grant copied one key, I don't know what else he copied." "That'll be expensive." "I know." Grant arrived before the locksmith. He walked into the lobby carrying the framed photograph he had removed from the condo, the one of us standing on Harlow's steps after the first unit was renovated. He held it under his arm as if he'd forgotten it was there. "You made them leave," he said. "They entered my building with a key you kept. I let them look at an empty unit. You weren't there. I trusted my mother. That's becoming expensive for everyone." Leonard disappeared into his office, though he left the door open. Grant lowered his voice. "Tessa is falling apart. So you gave her an apartment. I gave her an option. You gave her another promise that required my consent. I thought if you saw a workable plan, you thought I'd get there." He recognized his own words. Rain began ticking against the lobby windows. Grant glanced toward Leonard's open office. "I had those copies made for the flooring crew," he said. "I forgot my mother still had one." "Then why did you text that you returned one key?" "Because I was angry. You wanted me to know there were more. I wanted you to stop acting like you could erase everything I've done here by taking my name off a contact sheet. You did not have a name on the ownership documents. There you go again." "No, Grant, there you go again. You hear a fact and call it cold because warmth won't make it disappear." He leaned the framed photograph against the wall. In it, his arm was around my waist, both of us streaked with paint. I remembered the exact hour it was taken. We'd eaten pizza on the curb afterward and planned a trip we never took because Unit 5's water heater failed. "I'm not asking you for half the building," he said. "What are you asking for?" "To matter there. You mattered there yesterday. You mattered when I trusted you with a key. Trust with conditions. All trust has conditions." His face hardened. "Not in a marriage." The locksmith pulled up outside in a white van. Grant saw him through the glass. "You called someone already?" "Yes." He looked at the photograph, then at me. 11 weeks before our wedding, and you're changing locks. 11 weeks before our wedding, and I found your mother measuring my apartment." He picked up the frame. "Send me a list of what you think my work was worth, since that's how we're doing things." "I'm already making one." He hadn't expected that. For a second, hurt passed cleanly across his face. Then he laughed once. "Of course you are. The lock changes cost $3,800. Grant's work, priced against old contractor invoices and reduced where Leonard or I had done the same job beside him, came to $14,600. I added reimbursement for materials he had purchased himself. I included the 6 hours with the tenant during the restoration, even though Leonard had marked them personal. The total was $16,080. My finger hovered over the bank transfer button. Paying him would take almost all the money I had kept outside Harlow for wedding expenses. I sent it anyway. Grant called before the confirmation email arrived. "What did you do?" "I paid you. I didn't ask you to send money. You asked me to price your work. I was angry. You were also right that it had value. So now we're even? No. Now your labor isn't something either of us can reshape depending on what we want." He was silent. "I don't want your money," he said. "Then donate it to Tessa." "You know that's not the point." "I'm beginning to." He ended the call. The locksmith finished on a Thursday. The main water coupling failed early Friday morning. Unit 2's tenant called Leonard when water began coming through the light fixture over her kitchen table. By the time the city shut off the supply, the ceiling had sagged and half the cabinets were soaked. The emergency plumber, drying equipment, temporary hotel, and cabinet replacement took another $11,000 from the reserve. I spent most of Friday at Harlow in rubber boots, carrying wet towels to the service alley. At 6, Leonard handed me a convenience store sandwich and sat beside me on the rear stairs. "You could delay the roof another year," he said. "The flashing won't give us another year." "You could finance part of it." "I know. Or you could accept that this building will never thank you." I peeled the plastic from the sandwich. That sounded like marriage advice. It was building advice. Good. Buildings are simpler. That made me laugh, though my throat hurt. My father offered to help pay the locksmith. I refused. My mother brought coffee and spent 2 hours labeling damaged cabinet doors so they could be matched. She didn't mention Grant until we were alone in Unit 2. "He called your father," she said. "Why?" "To tell him he still intends to marry you." I stared at her over a warped drawer front. "That's generous." He sounded sincere. "Those aren't opposites." My mother rested the label maker on the counter. "Do you want him to be sincere?" I looked through the kitchen doorway at Leonard, checking the dehumidifier. "Yes," I said. "I just don't know if sincerity changes what he thinks he's entitled to do." Grant and I met with our premarital counselor the following Tuesday. He apologized for the email, the announcement, and the key. He admitted he had wanted to look like the person who saved Tessa. He spoke about his father, who could promise a vacation on Monday and borrow money from Colleen by Friday. Grant had spent his adult life trying to become the man whose promises held. "I didn't realize I was doing the same thing," he said, "promising what I didn't have." For the first time since dinner, I reached for his hand. He held mine tightly. Then the counselor asked what he believed should happen to Harlow after we married. Grant looked at our joined hands. "I think there should be a path to shared ownership," he said. "Otherwise, I'll always be auditioning for a home Mara can remove me from." My hand went still inside his. The counselor asked, "And if Mara doesn't want that?" Grant took a long breath. "Then we need to talk honestly about whether she wants a husband," he said, "or just someone useful who never gets a key." My phone buzzed in my purse as we left. Tessa had sent 12 screenshots from a family text thread I had never seen. Her message beneath them said, "I think you need to read what Mom told Grant to do before the dinner. Then I need to speak to both of you." I read the screenshots in the parking lot while Grant sat in his car 3 spaces away. The first messages were from the week before the dinner. Grant, "Leonard is going to insist she authorize it." Colleen, "Then don't ask him to move anything until the night you tell her." Grant, "If I tell her first, she'll say Harlow can't support it." Colleen, "She'll bury the whole thing in roof estimates. Let her see Tessa's relief before she sees numbers." Grant, "She'll be furious if Leonard contacts her." Colleen, "He won't if you present yourself as her representative. You've managed that building beside her for years." The next screenshot showed the morning Tessa signed the lease. Grant, "She did it. Deposit paid." Colleen, "Good. Now Mara will understand this isn't theoretical." Grant, "That could make it worse." Colleen, "Only if you act guilty. Announce it after champagne. Tessa will thank you both. Mara is too decent to take back a gift in front of everyone." Grant's response was a thumbs up. The final message had been sent 15 minutes before the engagement dinner. Colleen, "Make sure you say you and Mara decided. She needs to start thinking as a wife, not a property owner." I looked through the windshield at Grant's car. His hands were on the steering wheel, though the engine wasn't running. The counselor's office door opened behind me. Someone laughed in the hallway, and the ordinary sound made the messages feel even uglier. Tessa called. "How did you get these?" I asked Mom to show me where you agreed to the money. She kept saying there was context I hadn't seen, so I told her to show me the context. "And she gave you her phone?" "She handed it over like she was presenting evidence. That sounds like Colleen." "She thought the messages proved Grant had good intentions." I closed my eyes. Tessa said, "I knew Mom could push people. I didn't know they used me as the push." "I'm sorry." "Don't be." I stood up and thanked him before I thanked you. You thought I knew. I also wanted to think I had the kind of brother who could fix this. I didn't ask enough questions because the answer made me feel important. Across the lot, Grant finally started his car. He didn't pull away. "What happens with the lease?" I asked. "The landlord will let me assign it if I find another tenant. If I don't, I lose the deposit and owe rent until they do." "What did the consultant say?" "That the ground floor apartment was never a serious option. I could have told you that for free." "I believe you did." There was a tired smile in her voice. "Grant says you're meeting with both families," she continued. "He says that?" "He called me 10 minutes ago. Said you want everything out in the open before you make a final decision." I looked at his car again. "I haven't agreed to a meeting." "Will you? What do you want from it?" "I want the people who watched me thank him to understand what he did." The answer surprised me. "That's going to hurt you too," I said. "I'm already hurt. I'd like to stop carrying his half." Grant's car backed out. He paused at the exit, then turned toward me through the glass. I couldn't read his expression. "I'll call him," I said. He answered on the first ring. "I assume you saw the screenshots." I did. My mother was trying to help Tessa. "That's what you took from them?" "No, I took a lot of things from them. I just don't want this reduced to Mom manipulating me. You warned her it could make things worse. She told you how to use the dinner, and you did it." I made the decision. It was the first time he had claimed full responsibility without also claiming the building. I sat back against the headrest. Grant continued. "Tessa wants a meeting. I think she's right. We can't keep having separate versions of the same conversation." "What do you expect to happen?" "I expect us to put an actual plan on paper." "What plan?" "The wedding, Harlow, Tessa, all of it." "That's not one plan. It has to become one if we're still getting married." "If." His breath moved through the phone. "You took off your ring, Mara. You told a counselor that if I won't give you a path to my building, I may not want a husband." "That isn't what I meant. It's exactly what you said. I meant that I need a place in our life that can't be revoked every time I make a mistake. You had one. It wasn't the building." He went quiet. I stared at the blue glass key in my lap. The chip at its edge caught against the fabric of my pants. "Sunday at my parents' house," Grant said. "Same people who were at dinner. We correct this once." "You already invited them?" "I asked them to keep the afternoon open." Of course he had. "I'll come," I said. Relief entered his voice so quickly that it almost sounded like the old Grant. "Okay, good. I'll draft something before then. Not a transfer. A reasonable support plan with a cap. I'm bringing my own documents." "That's fine." He thought the documents meant negotiation. I let him think it. On Saturday, I met Tessa at her first studio. It occupied 3 rooms above a nail salon, with a narrow reception desk and walls painted the muted green she wore whenever she was nervous. Every appointment slot on the whiteboard was filled. "This place works," I said. "It works because it's small." She handed me the new lease. I thought a bigger address meant I'd become a bigger business. That's a common expensive thought. You really know how to comfort people. "I'm trying something new." She smiled despite herself. We reviewed the assignment clause. Tessa had already contacted 2 physical therapists and a skincare company looking for space. Nothing was certain, but at least she was trying to exit the problem instead of relocating it. "I'm withdrawing the loan offer," I said. Her eyebrows rose. Not to punish you. Grant made the promise. If I replace his promise with mine, we're still acting like the only question is how my money gets to you. Tessa nodded slowly. Good. Good. I was going to say no. Your mother won't like that. My mother currently thinks I'm experiencing delayed gratitude. I laughed. Tessa picked at the corner of the lease. Grant transferred me $12,000 yesterday. From where? The payment you sent him. I looked at her. He said he created the commitment, so he was covering the deposit. He told me it wasn't a gift. Is it a loan? No, he said it was the price of making a promise with my name on it. That sounded like Grant. The Grant I loved, arriving after the damage with exactly the right sentence and something heavy in his hands. Are you accepting it? I accepted enough to cover whatever I lose after assignment. The rest stays untouched until I know. Smart. I made Leonard show me the expenses this time. Tessa. What? He was very educational. Did you know water has a talent for finding the most expensive route through a ceiling? Yes. I also know what roof flashing is now. I wish I didn't. When I left, she hugged me. It wasn't the desperate embrace from the engagement dinner. She held on just long enough to make the choice clear. Grant's parents lived in a brick house where every framed photograph had been leveled with a ruler. Colleen arranged the Sunday meeting around the dining table as if she were chairing a committee. My parents sat together. Grant's uncle occupied the same uneasy role he had at the restaurant, though this time he had brought his own car and kept his keys beside his plate. The boxed engagement cake was gone. Grant had placed a folder at every chair. His proposal offered Tessa $2,000 a month for 6 months, split evenly between him and me. It also proposed that Harlow's future appreciation become marital property after 5 years. Colleen poured coffee while everyone read. It's a compromise, Grant said. No rent gets redirected. Harlow keeps all its operating income, and Tessa has limited support while she assigns the lease. Tessa closed her folder. I don't want it. Grant looked at her. We discussed this. You discussed helping. This still makes Mara pay for something you did. I'm paying half. With money, she just paid you. For work I did. Yes, Tessa said. So use it if you want. Leave her half out. Colleen put down the coffee pot. This is becoming performative. Mom, Grant said, no. Everyone is determined to prove that they can be the least selfish person at the table, and somehow I am expected to apologize for wanting my daughter's business to survive. Tessa looked at her. You told him to use me. I told him to remind Mara that there were people behind the numbers. You told him to wait until after I paid $12,000. Colleen's face tightened. You had made your decision, based on his lie, based on your business judgment. The words struck Tessa harder than anything said at the engagement dinner. Grant leaned forward. Mom, stop. She does this, Tessa said softly. She hands us the ladder, then blames us for climbing. Colleen pushed back from the table. I will not sit here while my entire family rewrites concern as manipulation. You don't have to, I said. She looked at me. But before anyone leaves, I have something to correct. I opened my own folder. Leonard's revision lay on top, followed by the invoices used to calculate Grant's work, the transfer confirmation, the emergency contact change, and the receipt from the locksmith. The brass key Grant had returned rested in a small envelope. My engagement ring was beneath it. Grant saw the ring first. Mara. At dinner, you announced that my rental income would support Tessa. You had already instructed Leonard to redirect every payment. Tessa thanked you for being generous with my property. My father looked down at his hands. Grant's uncle removed his glasses. Leonard's revision preserved the actual arrangement, I continued. The building remains mine. The rent stays in its operating account. Distributions remain under my control. Grant has been paid for his work, and he no longer has access. Colleen's eyes moved around the table. This was the audience she had chosen the first time, now hearing the part she had counted on keeping private. I slid copies of the screenshots beside Leonard's revision. The revision also preserved Grant's request not to contact me until after the announcement. These messages explain why. Grant didn't touch them. They've all seen the screenshots. Then they know this wasn't a misunderstanding about shared finances. You knew I might refuse. You and your mother designed a moment where refusal would humiliate Tessa. Grant's face reddened. And this meeting is what? You brought documents and a ring to my parents' house. You invited everyone. Tessa asked for the truth to be told in the same room. You let me draft a plan. I told you I was bringing my own documents. He stared at me, and I watched him understand how much he had relied on my silence to finish his sentences in the kindest possible way. You already decided, he said. Yes. Colleen sat very straight. So this is revenge. No, revenge would be taking something of yours because you tried to take something of mine. I looked at Grant. I'm only withdrawing what you treated as guaranteed. His eyes filled, and for one dangerous second, I wanted to cross the room. I knew the warmth of his hand at the back of my neck, the ridiculous songs he made up while cooking, the patience with which he had once sanded 6 cabinet doors because I couldn't afford new ones. Loving those things did not make the copied key fit my lock. I don't want Harlow, he said. I wanted proof I belonged. You had my home. You had my trust. You had a wedding date. And one mistake cancels all of it? One mistake is forgetting a birthday. You recruited your mother, used your sister's relief, misrepresented yourself to my manager, and copied access to my building. Then you asked a counselor to call ownership a path to marriage. He looked at the ring. You paid me like a contractor. I paid a debt you kept turning into permission. Tessa reached across the table and closed Grant's proposal. Grant picked up the ring but didn't put it in his pocket. He held it between his fingers, looking at the small point where the band had rubbed smooth against my hand. I did love you, he said. I know. That was the worst part. It was also the answer. The new studio lease was assigned 2 months later to a physical therapy practice. Tessa lost part of her deposit and opened a second treatment room inside a smaller wellness suite the following spring. She financed the equipment herself and sent Leonard a picture of the first payment schedule before she signed it. Grant kept the remainder of what I had paid him. We exchanged the condo keys through my father. The wedding deposits disappeared one cancellation at a time, smaller losses than the marriage would have been. At Harlow, I financed half the roof and replaced it in sections. The building remained demanding, ordinary, and mine to answer for. On the morning the last section was finished, I arrived before Leonard. The lobby smelled faintly of plaster and coffee. I unlocked the cabinet, checked the labeled spares, then crossed to the front door as sunlight reached through the narrow glass. The blue fob warmed in my palm. Its chipped edge caught the light, still fastened to the master key. I turned the lock and let myself in.